Hi, welcome to One Water, One Coffee, One Lesson. Today I'm going to be talking about ski touring backpacks. This is going to be a gear episode. It's just going to be talking about gear selection. If you don't like talking about gear, this is probably not the episode for you. I like talking about gear. I think it's fun. I actually enjoy this almost as much as the actual mountain sports. Yeah, so let's jump into it. Okay, so why bother talking about ski touring backpacks? I don't feel as though anybody watching this episode is likely to see one of the backpacks that we're going to talk about today and run out and buy that exact backpack. I'm not here to say, oh, this is the one for you, this is the one for you, so on. I'm here to foster a discussion. I think that articulating the pros and cons of one backpack versus another kind of gets the thoughtful juices flowing, and if you're in the market for one of these yourself, having watched somebody else go through the decision-making process can kind of get you off on the right track. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of different backpacks that I own that I've acquired over the years, and I'm going to talk about what I like and what I don't like about each of them, and when I use them and when I don't use them. And hopefully that will be useful to you. So I've got 4 ski touring backpacks. As I said, I've acquired these over the years. And I use them all. In the span of one season, I use all of these for various reasons. So it's kind of a good case study for why you might choose one versus another. So I'm going to start with this little one right here. All right, so this is a 12-liter North Face backpack. All of the packs that we're going to look at are ski touring backpacks. The thing in my mind that qualifies them as proper ski touring backpacks is they all have a purpose-made compartment for the Avy tools. Additionally, they all can carry the skis on your back. So I think, you've checked those 2 boxes, you've got a ski touring backpack. So this is the smallest one that I've got. So that's going to qualify as a pretty niche backpack. This is not going to be the first backpack that you'd ever choose if you're just getting into ski touring and you need one backpack to use pretty much every day. This is kind of a specialist. So let me just talk about the different features here, and then I'll talk about when I actually would use this. So here's the ski carry system. It's got these 2 straps. They're very burly. I've used them many, many times and there's not much wear. So you can put them across like this and you can carry a snowboard lengthwise, or you can put them in a diagonal configuration like this. You can carry a pair of skis in a diagonal configuration. The diagonal carry for skis is good because they don't collide with your feet as you're striding because the skis are off to one side. So that's how the ski carry system works on this generation of North Face backpacks. I think it's pretty good. These buckles are not too bad to use with gloves on. The other nice thing about these buckles is that you can tuck them into these little zippered pockets right here. So the backpack can become pretty streamlined, which is great if you are riding the chairlift or cat skiing or heli-skiing or doing something where you really can't afford to have a bunch of straps dangling all over the place, getting stuck on things. So these zip like that, and now they're put away. This right here is an ice axe loop. This bungee cord up here is a little bit stretched out right now, but it still works. This is to lash the top end of the ice axe. So you can do ice axe carry. There's a small fleece lined pocket right here, which usually I would put like a pair of sunglasses. It's not big enough for a pair of goggles. These loops right here, these are to secure a helmet. So your helmet's secured outside the pack. If it's windy or snowy, you're going to be getting snow in your helmet by carrying it this way, but it's good enough for the most part. And then we'll open up the main compartment, which happens to be the only compartment on this backpack. So you've got these 2 sleeves here for a shovel handle or a probe or a snow saw. And this is a hydration sleeve, and there's a little loop right here to hang your bladder from. And this is another compartment which you either could put the shovel blade or some extra layers So once again, this is 12 liters. It's very small. If you've got the Avi tools in there, you're not really going to have a whole lot of room left for extra layers or food or water. It's kind of one or the other. You decide what you're doing with this, and then you don't have a whole lot of options. The only other feature that we haven't talked about is this zippered compartment right here, which is a channel for you to route the drinking tube from your hydration bladder. So that can be threaded up through the main compartment out to here, and then you've got you've got the hydration tube right there. All right, so and this is the suspension. There's not too much to it. It's just this webbing strap. There's a sternum strap as well to keep the shoulder straps from flopping around. Well, yeah, the suspension is minimal. You're not really going to be carrying very much weight in this because it's not big enough to. That's just not the idea. So when you use this backpack, it's tiny. That's all there is to it. Very low profile. If you look at it in profile, it's, you know, pancake thin. You can't really put too much in here. So what's this good for? I use this as a resort backpack. If you are doing a big day in the resort and you're going to be, I don't know, way out in the back bowls or doing the side country or something like that, and you're not going to be able to get back to the lodge quickly, you may wish to throw an extra pair of gloves or an extra layer or some water and some snacks. This is big enough for all those things. If you want to add in the Avi tools, then you're starting to push it. It's not big enough for the Avi tools and the extra layers and the snacks and so forth. So maybe it's a storm day and you're going to be skiing, you know, the hike to terrain, and you actually want the Avi tools. You can bring all that with this backpack. You can ride the lift comfortably. You're not really going to have any room left for layers though, so it's got to be the sort of day where you don't expect to need a whole bunch of layers. It's just kind of a convenient backpack for doing a light side country, a big day at the resort, a very short tour that you're just not really committed that well. You know, you have the ability to turn around and come back, you know, if anything should change and you realize you don't have the gear you need. This backpack is just not big enough for a big day out of bounds. But with that said, it's a great backpack for the resort. It really makes you feel like you don't have to return to the lodge for any reason, because, you know, everything you could need for, you know, a long day in the resort or in the side country is right here. So here's the first backpack. As I said, niche. You know, if you're just getting into ski touring, this is not the one to start with. If you only ski the resort and sometimes the side country, maybe this is the one for you. All right, put this aside. Here's the next one I want to show. So here's another North Face design. This is the same generation as the green one. This is a 24-liter ABS pack. So ostensibly, it's a lot bigger than this one being 12 liters, this one being 24. However, we open this thing up, you can see that the airbags and the air cylinder take up like most of the internal space. So once again, this is going to be a very niche pack. This is not the first one to get if you're just getting into ski touring. If, like with this one, you're mostly interested in cat skiing or heli-skiing or side country or the hike to terrain at Silverton, that kind of thing, maybe this is the thing for you. It is relatively low profile. You can kind of ride the lift with it. A little bit awkward, but not the worst. It's got the same ski carry system as the little green one. The straps zip into these little zippered compartments so that you can ride the lift or a cat or whatever without getting all these dangling straps stuck to anything. Once again, you can do a snowboard by connecting like this, or you can do skis diagonally like this. Pretty good ski carry system. I'm going to tuck these back away. Similar ice axe carry. Here's the ice axe loop. Here's a bungee cord that you can lash the top end of your ice axe. Helmet carry, once again, if it's windy or snowy, like snow's going to be getting into your helmet, so this is not the greatest helmet carry for bad weather, but it's good enough in most situations. This one, now we're starting to upgrade a little bit, has a dedicated heavy tools compartment. Nothing else would go in here, right? The tools are right here, ready to go when you need them. Okay. Now we've got a pretty big helmet, or excuse me, a pretty big goggles pocket. You could also put some sundries, right? Ski straps, pocket knives, skin wax, whatever. This is big enough for goggles. It's not fleece lined, but that's okay. You know, you just use a chamois if you're putting goggles or sunglasses in there. We've already been in here. We'll just take another quick look. Here's a zippered compartment for keys, chapstick, whatever. Once again, taking a better look at the inside of this thing, there's almost not enough room for anything other than the ABS components. You could put like a small light down jacket here, or an extra pair of gloves, a hat. That's kind of it. This is just not big enough to put a whole lot. You get a little extra volume, right, in this dimension, but you're really nesting all your gear right here, so there's just not a ton of room left. This is not really the backpack for a long day in the backcountry, unless it's very good weather and you just know that you're not going to need much clothing. There's just not enough room in this backpack to really carry a whole bunch of stuff if you're not sure what you're gonna need for a given day. No hydration sleeve in this one. There's not room for it. The ABS handle is here instead of the channel for the hydration tube. This strap has nothing on it. Sternum strap. Great, so here's the suspension. Not quite as minimal as with this little one. A little bit beefier. It's got these nice kind of padded hip belts, but with this like flexible frame sheet and like really the hip belt offers no rigidity at all. This is just going to secure it to your body. It's not going to offer support per se. It does use all this nice metal hardware because the idea is if you're an avalanche, you need some beefy materials that aren't going to break under stress. So this is nice. It's easy to manipulate with gloves on. There is a leg loop. All right, so it's just got two small plastic buckles. You pass it under your leg and clip it like this, so it's kind of like a climbing harness. This keeps it so that if you're in an avalanche and you deploy the airbags, it doesn't try to pull off over your head. If your arms are up over your head, it'll try to go up over your head, and the sternum strap will get wrapped around your neck. This prevents all that from happening. So most ABS bags will have something like this and a metal buckle. That's kind of, I think, a critical component. And then this has two hip belt pockets, which I actually really love about this backpack. Between these two pockets, you have a long day worth of snacks right at your fingertips. So you never have to take off the backpack to access your snacks. Unfortunately, you may have to take off the backpack to access your water because there's not a dedicated place for that on this backpack. We'll talk about that more later. So, okay, this is a 24-liter ABS bag. Another specialist, a real niche candidate. Not the first one you should get unless all you plan to do is side country or cat skiing. If you're doing long self-supported days in the backcountry, this is probably not going to cut it unless it's very good weather, like spring, summer type of conditions. But overall, a really nice backpack. There's this one over here. All right, so now we're out of the niche. We're out of the niche category and into the daily driver category. So this is another North Face design. This is actually the first one of all these North Face backpacks that I got. And I liked it, so I decided to get a few others for, you know, slightly different scenarios. So, like with the other two, it's got the exact same ski carry system. You can strap the ski. You can configure these straps across the backpack, so that you can do a snowboard carry vertically, or you can do diagonal and carry skis diagonally. Ice axe loop with another bungee cord to lash the top end of the ice axe. This is a very generous heavy tools compartment. It's got dedicated sleeves for the shovel handle and the probe and the snow saw, and a big huge spot for the shovel blade. This is a really big tools pocket, which I actually like a lot. A lot of other touring packs have a smaller tools pocket, and you find that it's hard to get things in and out. Not really a huge problem, because usually you put those things in and then just don't take them out again. But with that said, it's just nice to be able to put things into the backpack without it being a struggle. So this backpack's got a very long torso, and I think that contributes to the generous sizing of the tools compartment. Speaking of the long torso, this is another very slender backpack. You know, packs to the gills, it's about this wide, which is still pretty low profile. The nice thing about the low profile and the long torso is that it gets you a substantial volume. This one's, I think, a 34-liter volume, without really having it be far away from your center of gravity. It's all tucked in close to your torso. So it carries a substantial amount of weight better than you might expect, especially given, once again, relatively flimsy suspension. These hip belts are just kind of padded. The belt is a wide strap of webbing, which is nice, and a beefy buckle. But this hip belt is, and it's got a flexible frame sheet and a floppy hip belt. It's good enough for the amount of weight you should be carrying in this backpack, but it's not offering a great deal of support like a traditional backpacking backpack. But with that said, the shape of this backpack makes it carry pretty nicely. You've got compression straps on the side, right? So like if you've got the thing loaded to the gills, you don't really need these. If you're not carrying all that much stuff, you can shrink this down so that it carries comfortably. So this is a daily driver once again. So if this is the only backpack you're getting, you can fill it to the brim, or you can have it half empty, and using these compression straps, it's still going to carry nicely. So this is like a good backpack to get if you've got to choose just one, or if it's your first one. Compression straps again, small side pocket right here. It's not huge. I've used it to put like micro spikes and other random sundries. You could probably put like ski crampons in here. It doesn't really fit a water bottle. It's not the most useful pocket, to be totally honest. That's okay though. This backpack does have a hydration sleeve, and it's actually big enough for a 3-liter bladder. A 3-liter bladder is, you know, more than you're gonna need unless it's very hot out. So unless you're into the spring or the summer, you know, 3 liters is more than you're usually gonna need for a tour. And this backpack will carry that weight nicely, with plenty of room left over for layers and whatever else. Let's see. So this is a cool feature. You've got a small tool loop right here. This is meant for like light ice or rock rack if you're doing some more like technical mountaineering type activities. The other thing I use it for frequently is putting a camera pod here. Another good use is like dog treats or poop bags if you're going skiing with your dogs. That's something I do a lot. So this thing is really handy, just to be able to have stuff at your fingertips without having to pull your backpack off and dig through to look for whatever you're trying to get. You can just clip a few important things that you're going to be using frequently to this little loop, and it's just there for you. Over here we've got another hip belt pocket, which I use for snacks, which is really, you know, you can put a substantial amount of snacks right here and be able to eat and drink without having to take your backpack off, which, you know, if you're doing a long tour, that's kind of a critical step to being efficient while you're out on the trail. You're taking your backpack off constantly, you're just slowing way down. You're using a lot of energy because you're on your feet, but you're not really going that fast if you have to constantly take off your pack and fiddle about. So having food and water at your fingertips is a big win in efficiency if you're trying to do long days or just kind of be comfortable on the trail. And then the last thing that this backpack has that is a really cool feature is this external, let's call it a garage pocket. This is on the bottom of the backpack, notably. This is meant to store either your climbing skins or your boot crampons. So, you know, those things typically get wet. You've gone up the mountain, you're stepping around in the snow. Depending on the temperature, this could be soaking wet or at least just covered in snow by the time you're ready to transition and take the skins off. Instead of putting them into the top of your backpack where all that water is going to melt and drizzle down into your down jacket, you put them down here. This is the perfect size for a normal pair of climbing skins. If you've got huge powder skis, this might be a little bit tight. But for, you know, any kind of skis that are in like the 105, 110 range or smaller, this is plenty of room for a normal pair of climbing skins, as well as a pair of boot crampons. So, you know, if you're going up the mountain and you're in your skins and you realize it's too steep and it's time to transition to crampons, you pull the crampons out of here, you put the skins back into there. It's a very tidy system, and you don't have to wrestle with all the stuff that's in the top of your pack, which you probably don't if you're like me. The extra layers don't usually come on and off all that frequently, so being able to access the garage portion of your backpack without messing around with your extra gloves or your down jacket or whatever else that's in the main compartment is kind of a great organizational feature. So this backpack, in addition to being a 34-liter volume, which is like a good all-around like long day touring backpack, also is very feature-rich for any kind of like technical or semi-technical touring objectives. The last thing I didn't talk about is this pocket on the lid, which is a really generous fleece-lined goggle pocket. This is actually big enough for a pair of goggles, like comfortably, unlike with these two, which, you know, you can fit goggles into the pocket on this one. The green one you just can't fit goggles into. This one's big enough for a pair of goggles. It's a good place to store goggles, GoPros, whatever kinds of stuff that you want quick access to, but it's fleece, so it's, you know, not going to bang up your delicate stuff. Okay, so daily driver. If you had to choose just one, something like this. So this is 34 liters. You could go smaller. You could go like a 26 liter. That's probably big enough for a long day tour. 34 is maybe on the high end for ordinary day touring, but this is a great daily driver. All right, so here's the last backpack. This is the one I've actually most recently acquired, as well as used most frequently. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is extremely feature rich and it's extremely large, and I would say it's probably more of an expedition style backpack than these ones over here. These ones are ski touring backpacks. This is kind of big day, midwinter, deep backcountry, almost expedition style backpack. This is a 55 liter backpack, which is bigger than what most people are ever going to want. But I like it, and we'll talk about that. Yeah, so let's dig into the features. So first of all, suspension. Totally different from the other three that we just looked at. It's got a padded hip belt, this big padded back. The shoulder straps are very beefy. This is built much more like a backpacking backpack. This thing actually comes in 3 sizes. This is 55, the smallest one. You could get this as big as a 105 if you're doing like a real expedition. Alaska, the Himalaya, something like that. This one is probably this is the smallest one. It's also like the biggest backpack I think you'd ever consider taking on most day tours, just because of how overbuilt it is. It's got metal stays instead of just the flexible frame sheet. These are just aluminum stays. So you can carry a ton with this backpack, and it's pretty comfortable. It's got a floating lid. Can't really see well right now because I've got it all zipped down, but there's a floating lid. So if you've got the thing overloaded, you can raise the lid up or down to accommodate more space. The lid itself has a bunch of different pockets. So there's a big pocket right here, small pocket right here. Inside the lid, there's another pocket with a leash for your keys. This is just great organizational stuff. Like if you're doing an overnight or a really, really long day, having stuff where you can find it is just great. You spend less time looking for things or digging around. So the mouth of it's top loading. The mouth is huge. There's 2 draw cords. So if you've got this loaded up at an ordinary capacity, you can use this one. If you've got it totally overloaded, you get an extra few liters by using this as the main draw cord. You just pull to tighten, and then to loosen. And this stuff is all pretty operable with gloves on. Okay, so now what? Like I said, very, very feature rich. So this backpack has side pockets on either side. These pockets are big enough for Nalgene bottles or thermoses. The only trouble is that they're a little bit hard to get to when you're wearing the backpack. You've got to sort of reach back. You know, if you don't have the best shoulder mobility, it's awkward. I find it awkward a lot of times. I'll undo one shoulder strap so I can grab that water bottle out of the side of this backpack. So while these are here, and I appreciate that they're there, they're not always the most convenient. It's worth thinking about. We'll come back to that later. This backpack also has a hydration sleeve. 3 liters, this is probably the max that you can put into here. That's a lot of water. You probably don't want to carry more than that anyways. So hydration sleeve, and there is a port in here which you can fish the tube out through, and then you can run the tube down either side of your backpack, of your shoulder strap, and there's a bunch of little loops that you can pass the tube through so that you can secure it wherever you think makes sense for you. And then we have compression straps galore. So this thing just closes the side pockets. Here's a compression strap, an upper compression strap. You've got the same on the other side of the backpack. The cool thing about these straps is that it's one continuous strap that goes all the way around the backpack. So if you've got a bunch of stuff strapped to the side of your backpack here, you can loosen this way up and give yourself however much extra room you need to tie down, I don't know, a sleeping pad or a tent or whatever. Okay, once again, we've got external. This is kind of a garage compartment. This is the convenient spot for your boot crampons or your ski crampons or your climbing skins. And you know, you've got this compression strap right here to cinch that thing closed, as well as these little auxiliary ones that you can kind of open and close to tighten down so nothing falls out of your pack. Here's the Abbey Tools compartment. Mandatory in order to consider this a ski touring backpack. However, all these straps and things are right here. So, not the end of the world, but this is a little bit of a smaller compartment. There's a bunch of stuff right here. So getting the tools in and out of this pocket is not as easy as, say, on this backpack right here. Not the end of the world, because you know, you put the tools in there and then usually you don't take them out again. So it's fine. But you know, dedicated tools compartment with room for shovel, probe, shovel handle, snow saw, and then you can just zip it all away. Once again, ice axe carry. This one can take 2 ice axes if you're doing something very technical. There's not dedicated fixtures to lash the upper end of the ice axe. You just have to kind of wing it. You can use, you know, this thing here or one of these compression straps. There's plenty of things to use on this backpack to lash whatever down, so it's fine. So anyways, this is sort of my main ski touring backpack. It's huge, but carries really, really well. I mean, when this thing is full, it actually feels pretty good. So why would you use this? This, once again, I think has to be regarded as a niche or a specialist type of backpack. It's just huge. So why do I use this? Well, you read accident reports, and one of the things that jumps out to me when you read accident reports is that when people are being recovered from the backcountry, even for relatively minor injuries like twisted knee, you're laying in the snow for like 5 hours. And if you twist your knee at 1 in the afternoon while you're on the way down, what was about to have been a nice half-day tour ends up being sitting in the snow until it's potentially dark out, freezing your ass off. And in the middle of the winter, you know, if you're skiing deep powder and you're in the deep backcountry, you can carry enough clothes, you can carry enough extra layers in this backpack to be out overnight easily. And if somebody in your party is injured, you just don't have to worry about how long rescue takes. The person who's injured, whoever's immobilized, like that, you can carry more than you would need to just stay out overnight. With everything in this backpack, it still carries comfortably despite the tremendous amount of gear that you can tote along with it. It's just like a cheap insurance policy. Nobody's getting hypothermia or frostbite if you are toting this thing And, you know, as a side benefit, you know, I'm carrying this huge thing. It's a lot of gear. You are carrying it up a mountain. If you do that frequently enough, you're in pretty good shape for the spring, summer season, and you want to go do objectives, you gear down and take a more minimal set of gear. You actually have the strength for a really long day because you're used to carrying this big, huge thing. Okay, a few more features. So once again, really beefy hip belt. The hip belt has two beefy tool hard points, once again meant for rock rack or ice rack for technical missions. I use them often for camera pods or dog treats or poop bags or that sort of thing. These things are really useful. Once again, if you're on a tour, you don't want to have to constantly stop and put your backpack down so that you can get the stuff that you need. Having this right here is just great. Notably, no place for snacks. So unfortunately, if you're wearing this backpack, I tend to make sure that I'm wearing a pair of pants or jacket that have plenty of pockets for Cliff Bars or whatnot. So that's one downside to this, despite being very, very feature rich. It doesn't have a good place for snacks. You know, taking this thing on and off is kind of a bear. You know, it's huge. So, I mean, when it's on your back, it's great. You're taking it on and off, that's kind of, you know, a pain. So you don't want to have to do that constantly to get snacks or water. So you got to figure out some other way to have the snacks and the water close at hand. This right here, I've got a carabiner on it right now, but this hard point, there's a matching one right here. This hard point, there are sled loops. This is a dedicated spot to pull a ski loop, to pull a ski poke. So if you're doing an overnight or a multi-day, you just can't carry all your ski touring gear, enough warm clothes to stand around in the dark comfortably, and a tent, and all the food. It's just too much. Sure, you could get like a 105, right? This comes in a 105 and a 95 in some very large sizes. But if you're there for the actual skiing, 55 is probably as big as you really want to go. So if you want to have, you know, a moderately sized backpack on your back while you're doing the actual skiing, but you're going to be out for, you know, a night or multiple nights, the ability to pull a sled is really great because you can just put all the bulky, heavy stuff on the sled and it's just dramatically easier. So this backpack actually has dedicated hard points for pulling the sled. This makes pulling the sled way easier. You know, when you have dedicated fixtures for these things, you're not constantly jury-rigging something, and that's just making it all easier and faster and less energy wasted fiddling around. So yeah, that is, I think, just about all the features of this backpack. So yeah, quick recap. Borderline overkill, but you're never going to find yourself unprepared, and it builds strength. Daily driver, so 55 liters, 34 liters, 24 liters, specialist, and then resort. So those are my backpacks. I use them all, depending on what I've got in mind for a given day. So this is like midwinter, it's really cold, it's really snowy. I'm gonna be doing a long day, or I don't know how long of a day I'm gonna be doing. I want some exercise. This is daily driver. It's not 5 degrees out and nuking. It's an ordinary day. You don't think you need that much clothing. You want to go a little bit faster, a little bit further. You still have the full suite of features. Ski carry, helmet carry, all the heavy tools, crampon pouch, etc. Heli-skiing, resort skiing. So if you had to pick just one, you pick the daily driver. As time goes on, it might make sense to grab a few extras, and then you always have just what you need when you want it. The nice thing about this is that none of them are ever going to wear out. I rotate through these things. It's like having snow tires and summer tires. Sure, it's more money up front, overhead, but you're swapping them. So none of it's going to wear out as quickly as if you just had one on its own. If you take care of this stuff, it lasts forever. This one's probably 15 years old, and I still use it. It's worn, but it works, and so, you know, it's I won't say it's an investment, but it's not really an indulgence either, because you have these things and they last if you take care of them. Okay, so those are the backpacks. You choose what makes sense for you on a given day. So now I want to talk about accessories. This is something I've started getting into more recently. So one of the things I talked about with all these different backpacks is the fact that you want to have a selection of gear that you're going to need frequently at your fingertips. You don't want to have to constantly stop. Sure, it's good to take stops to drink and eat and take some pictures, enjoy the view, catch your breath. But you don't really want to be constantly stopping, because that's what really saps your time and your energy. So if everything is at your fingertips, you're much more efficient, you cover more ground, you can do more objectives, you can have more fun. So what I have started doing in the recent few years is collecting a few different accessory pods for my backpacks. So we can see these things right here. All of these can be used with any of my backpacks, which is what I think is great about them. So just quickly, these two right here are camera pods. These two things are for Nalgene bottles or thermoses, and this thing they call shoulder pocket, which is big enough for a phone and or an inReach. So here's what you do with these things. It's got a couple of clips, and you just clip this thing to your shoulder strap. So far I haven't really found a backpack of mine that I couldn't clip this to in some decent way. So if you're navigating the backcountry and you're off trail and you're breaking trail, having your phone in your shoulder pocket, and now this thing is insulated, right? So most phones have pretty good battery life nowadays. You put this thing into the shoulder pocket, it's got like a foam insulation to it, so it's kind of hanging onto that battery life a little bit more than if it were just kind of sitting out in an ordinary hip belt pocket that's not insulated. So this thing is right at your fingertips. You're ski touring, you don't have to like dig through your backpack. You can just pull the phone out of basically a chest pocket and check that you're still en route. So this is a game changer in my opinion. It's also got a convenient spot for my inReach. This is, inReach Mini, the big one might not fit here. You might also put like a pair of sunglasses or something like that here. I like doing the inReach here because it kind of sticks out a little bit. People will recognize it, I hope. And if I'm the one who's incapacitated, this thing is someplace somebody can get to it. Not only that, it's not buried in my backpack, so the antenna actually has got signal. So as you're touring along, if an emergency does happen, you don't have to pull it out and wait 15 minutes for it to acquire, fix to satellite, and be able to tell the emergency people where exactly you are. So being in this pocket right here, it's available to people who need it, as well as it still has line of sight to the sky and knows where you are. So this is the shoulder pocket. Really convenient for navigation and safety. Okay, so these two things, Nalgene bottle insulators. So first of all, hydration sleeves are great, but unless you're very religious about flushing the tube out after you've drank out of it on any kind of a cold day, it's just going to be frozen. And then you have 3 liters of ballast in your backpack and no water. So for most midwinter tours, I just take a liter or 2 of water, maybe 1 liter of hot tea and 1 liter of water, depending on how cold it really is. And then I attach them to the hip belt somehow or another. So they dangle around a little bit. If you don't like things dangling, this may not be for you. But the great thing about these is that they're easy to reach. They're just right next to your hips. You don't have to reach onto the back of your backpack to try to fish something out. So it's much easier to grab water when you need it, which is important. If it's not convenient, you're not going to do it. And you need to drink during the day. So having this be conveniently at hand is a game changer for me anyways. So I've got 2 of these. This one's EMS, this one's Hyperlight. They're both insulated. Beyond the insulation, it's a convenient spot to be able to access your water whenever it comes to mind. That's the biggest advantage to these things. This one's got a little leash on it. This one, I added the leash to it, right? You want to be able to do this with gloved hands. Okay, and then I've got these 2 camera pods. This big one is big enough for like an SLR style camera with a decently large lens on it. This one is more for like a point and shoot or a rangefinder or an SLR with a pancake lens. They've got these little miniature carabiners. So what you would do with this is you clip them to like the tool loop of your waist belt. And then you've got, quick access for cameras. I like cameras, and you don't want to be slowing everybody in your party down by constantly stop to pull your camera out of your backpack and fiddle all around. So if these things are just hanging from your hips, then it's ready to go when you need it. The other thing you can do if you don't have too heavy of a camera is clip it to the sternum strap of your backpack, and then once again it's just right here. And of course these things can be used for other accessories too, right? Like this one I use for my camera. This one I can put a couple of GoPros into. If I don't have all that stuff with me, or if I've got them attached to a ski pole or on a neck strap or something like that, some other stuff can go into here, which I often do. So like during the course of the day, I'll take things out of here, put something back into it. Once again, the main principle is that you've got this convenient storage on your body that doesn't require you to stop, take your backpack off, open it up, drop things all over the snow, find what you want, and then have to pack all up again while meanwhile your touring partners are 100 yards down the trail. This stuff is just basically at arm's reach, and it really improves the quality of your day because you don't have to keep stopping. And if you get one of these feature-rich backpacks, like, really any of these, frankly, you can creatively find ways to just hang all this stuff off of the various loops, webbings, straps that are built into your backpack, and it usually carries pretty well if you put a little bit of thought into it. All right, so that's my selection of backpacks. I don't recommend anyone run out and buy 4 backpacks. It's taken me like 20 years to acquire all these things, and they're all gonna last because I'm rotating through them. Figure out what you're likely to do the most. Are you only ever gonna go cat skiing? Are you only ever gonna go resort skiing? Are you just dead set on doing the biggest alpine days of all time? Or maybe you're something of a middle road person and you just want to do normal day tours. Figure out what you're going to do. Pick the backpack that fits that circumstances, and then see if you even need another one. Or give it a few years, decide what you like and what you don't like, and then contemplate what you need for your backup. So yeah, hopefully that gets you thinking about what the critical decision-making factors are when it comes to ski touring backpacks. This is what I've got. It's working for me. Hopefully you can find something that works for you.